night turned out to be kind of a slow night. Had one car chase that ended up with a crash. I checked on that. Got some video, but I don't think they used it. And we had live shots at the stadium because Len Dawson passed away. He was a Chiefs football hero and longtime local sports anchor and living legend. And now he's passed into memory. And I thought I would stop and get some, well, you know, what am I always stopping for? Walk on in here. Woohoo! Look at that. Coffee. Hey, how you doing? If it's windy in the mic, I apologize. The weather is so nice right now that I'm driving with the windows open. The only reason the air is blowing is because this app that I use overheats my phone. So if I quit mid-sentence, it's because of that. Because my phone is overheated and it says, I quit. Fine. And it is the first day of September. The beautiful first day of September. Although, I can't shake this feeling that I have. September is a memorable month in American history, and every year, September 11th, we commemorate what happened. It's now going on 21 years, and so when the weather is nice like this in the beginning of September, it brings back some feelings to all of us that were alive at the time and still vividly remember. And so I have this kind of like feeling of dread. You're going down the wrong lane because it's so poorly marked. I've done that too. It's ridiculous of this construction. They need to be able to mark this better, and they're not. And sometimes it changes overnight. Oh, and look, they've gutted this. They're going to keep the facade, I guess, but they're not keeping much of it. And of course, if you know anything about historic designations, as soon as you alter a historic property, it ceases to be historic, and thus can be demolished without any notice in the future. That's not a nice thing. I'm into preservation, and that's a big Kansas City landmark. Anyway, this is also the beginning of all the birthday months in our family, and somebody's birthday is coming up, so sorry about all the noise. I mean, I bitch about the cones and everything, but what they're doing, I'm all in favor of. They're adding to the streetcar line. But anyway, so that's what this errand is about, that I'm about to do is somebody's birthday, which is happening tomorrow. So I'm going to take care of a few things for that. And then the missus has tomorrow off, so hopefully she can take care of the rest. It's sort of like working as a team here, doing a little bit each so that one of us doesn't have to do it all. But, you know, there are times when one of us has to do it all because the other one is up to here with our work or something else going on in our crazy lives. which is fine. But anyway, kind of doing a little impromptu tour of Main Street in Kansas City, what's going on around here with all the road destruction. You know, they're taking advantage and doing all the infrastructure while they lay streetcar tracks. And I noticed yesterday that they're adding more line coming up this way. Oops, red light. Speaking of historic preservation, there's a developer who's trying to tear down this whole block right here and trying to fly under the radar and get it done quickly. And from what I understand, he's not developing anything, just tearing it down for future development. And of course, they will probably try and use that historic designation rule. You know, if one brick has been taken out of place or somebody moved a wall or something, oh, it's no longer historic, let's tear it all down. And that's not the point. That building on the corner is one of the last of its type in this city that, you know, has been fairly well preserved. With that turret and everything, you know, Victorian functional building. And we can't afford to lose it. So I hope we win this fight. You know, at the very least, if you're going to build on that corner, build into what's already there. But the problem is that I think developers like to have a free hand, and so they want to tear everything down so that they can build whatever they want and not have to account to anybody for anything. This is beginning to be a rant. As long as my app and camera hold out. But, let me just keep doing this impromptu Main Street tour. I mean, Main Street is a very broad street. Yeah, you can see the tracks are going in right there. This is a very broad street, and thus, you know, they're having a streetcar come up straight up Main. I wonder, that grade is pretty steep for a rail-based vehicle. So, you know, I'm guessing that the engineering is much smarter than me. But that's a question I have about this project, is how well they'll be able to tackle the grade. Believe it or not, even in wintertime, because, you know, that grade could be a problem if you start losing traction. You know, steel wheels on a steel rail. But I don't know how they've accounted for it. Hope we don't find out it becomes a problem. But it's good to see. So now we have tracks on both sides, on that side and on this side over here, on the left and the right. And, you know, of course, when the streetcar is not running, you can drive on the tracks, so it's not like you're really losing a lane. You just have to make way for the streetcar. And of course, it's extending. I can see a streetcar up here. It's extending from up here. And, you know, a lot of businesses are suffering right now because of, you know, all the construction, but as soon as it's done, they'll definitely benefit from the traffic, especially what they're building now. This segment to the south is going to actually link the university with downtown. So a lot of college students will be able to benefit from it. And I think it'll benefit the city as a whole in a really big way. Of course, I am a big advocate of anything rail-based. being a foamer, if you don't know what that is. I think I probably explained it in a million blogs. But also is probably one of the most efficient, best ways of getting people around. And it's a good investment. And the thing is, we just traveled to a country that has none of that. The only thing that it has is rubber-based transportation. It doesn't even have good allowances for pedestrians, and doesn't even really have good allowances in most places for bicycles. And the traffic was just horrendous. We are so lucky in this country to not have to put up with that. I mean, there are parts of this country that have horrendous traffic as well, but we're in a part of the country where we don't have that. And it's very far-sighted and a good investment to build this kind of infrastructure now before it becomes a problem. Because once it becomes a problem, it becomes impossible and very expensive to try to fix it. And we saw the results of that. I mean, literally, to get out of my brother-in-law's neighborhood, he lives in a gated community with a security guard that they pay with their dues, neighborhood dues. And the security guard has to actually physically walk out in the street most times of the day and stop traffic so they can actually get out of their neighborhood. And I mean, there's truck traffic and car traffic and everything. And it's just an all-around general hazard. And once you get into traffic, it can be upwards to an hour just to get through the little municipality that they're in, which is Tayud, which is a part of the town of Constellation. And there's two highways that run through Constellation, and both of them are equally as bad. Constellation is just impossible to get through. It's one of the worst parts of the city of Cebu, I think. And it's just a matter of deciding to build infrastructure like this. But I mean, it's not just this. I mentioned, me liking trains. They need trains all over the country, not only for transporting people, but for transporting goods, because a lot of the traffic tie-ups are being caused by a lot of freight that's being hauled little bits at a time by trucks. And there isn't much rail infrastructure in the Philippines that I could see. And I think it's one of the only Asian countries and one of the few countries in the world that has that issue, that problem. So, I don't know. Anyway, rambled on. I'm basically following the streetcar tracks all the way. This is like the middle of the day on a Thursday. Coming in the middle of the day, still morning, mid-morning. And you can see how easy it is for me to get around. And they've added other things in town. You can rent scooters, you can rent electric bikes. They've got bike lanes everywhere. The streetcars, there's buses, there's Uber, a lot of pedestrian access. Everything to just give people as many different modes of moving themselves around the city as possible. But Kansas City is probably what you would consider a low density city. Kansas City's problem is and always has been that it's so spread out. A lot of people live way out in the suburbs, and so a lot of our traffic congestion happens during rush hour on the interstates when everybody gets on the highways and clogs them up. But if you know all the back roads and side streets and everything, you can easily avoid that. And if a major highway is clogged, then you might as well just keep moving on city streets, and I've rarely had problems with it. Right now the streetcars are being used mostly to shuttle tourists around the city. I mean, there are a lot of people who live down here who take advantage of it, get to go different places with it. But as they build it out, I will see it being one of the major vital arteries that people will use to get around. And I hope that they can do that and support it without, making it expensive to ride. And everywhere I've been, they use the streetcars, and I believe this model of streetcars is actually kind of universal, being used all over the world. I think I saw these types or something similar being used in Germany. But everywhere we've been in Europe that has heavily uses this system is just beautiful. It's so easy to get around, and even if you have to pay, I mentioned I hope they keep it free here, but even in Berlin when we used it, it was cheap, much cheaper than keeping a car. And it's a great thing if you live in the city. You don't have to use your car at all, and hopefully Kansas City someday will fulfill that dream, where you can live in the city and never have to touch your car and add to the carbon footprint and everything else like that. But such a beautiful morning. I have a gripe about some of these traffic lights being too long and stopping everybody, and not really, but I don't know. That gripe has been tempered by having been to a place where they deal with real congestion issues. And I don't think it's like that all over the Philippines. I think it's just like that in the cities. I think once you get out in a lot of outlying areas, it's actually very pretty, very peaceful, and paradise. A hot paradise, but a paradise. Yeah, I'm about to cross into North Kansas City now, which is a separate city. And I'll just end it here because I've ranted too long, and it's probably my namesake, very boorish and boring. So, woohoo!